Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Excited to get to share a space with you and let my subscribers actually get to see you in person and hear a little more about you.
Really honored to be here. It's really, really sweet of you to let me come on your channel and talk about. I know you've been doing kind of this 30 days of magic and and I think that's really, really fun. And it was one of those things where as you were doing, it's like, oh, that would be a really good intersection for this. We do a lot of sort of everyday magic, right? So it just seemed like that would be kind of a fun thing for us to sort of a crossover. It's Flintstones meet the Jetsons time, right?
Yes, exactly. Well, and let me go ahead and tell my viewers who you are. This is Cory from, I want to say from Cory and Lane of New World Witchery, a podcast that if you've watched more than one of my videos, you already know I'm a little obsessive about. And how long have you guys been doing this now? It's over a decade, isn't it?
Over a decade, yeah. This is our 11th year, I believe. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
I know. Firelight, we were texting the other day, and Firelight was talking about how he went on Paige, the Fat Feminist Witches podcast, and she came on his show, I think, and she was like, "Oh, it's so fun to get to go into all these old podcasts."
I bet he took that personally. He doesn't like that word, does he?
Yeah, it was sweet. It was very sweetly done. So it was, and Paige is super delightful. I adore Paige, but anyway, yeah, it's and you've been around with us really since the beginning, as far as I know, right?
I think I've been listening to you. I'm trying to remember when I first found you, because when I first came on to this path and started at the same time discovering podcasts, I found that a lot of the ones I would listen to were no longer putting out content. And so I'd listen anyway, but I'd feel a little sad and be like, well, they're not really current anymore. And then I found yours, and I really think the first episode I ever heard was really kind of a strange one compared to your normal content. It's the one where you were reading some of the testimony or whatever in Salem. I think it was in the Salem witch trials, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's the very first one I listened to. I don't know if it was most current at the time or if that's just the first one that popped up in my feed. But then I went back and listened to all of them, some of them so many times that when I did get to meet you guys last year, I had to rein it in because I wanted to quote you. And I wanted to say, remember that time when you were talking about that? And I was like, oh God, keep it together. Keep it together. Don't be too big of a fangirl. So but yeah, ever since the very beginning of all the podcasts I listened to, that yours is the one I really stuck with and I identified with. I felt like since we came from this similar backgrounds and grew up, in a similar area of the country, it just felt connection. And then the humor, there was knowledge, entertainment, humor, and thank you for the years of just entertainment and knowledge and giggles.
Well, thank you as well. I mean, you've been doing your channel for several years, and you've been putting out some really, really brave stuff in terms of. I know you've had some issues with how forward you can be on certain things, but dealing with recovery is one aspect of your magical practice as well as your spiritual life. I think that's astoundingly bold and astoundingly brave to do. So, massive respect for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm thrilled to be here, thrilled to be chatting, and it was a delight to meet you in person as well. You were super chill. It was super great. We did magical shop hopping and everything. It was great. So
you were the chauffeur. You took it. It was great. It was.
It
was something I'd been hoping for, and then it really was a bucket list thing. I'm like, there's these few things I hope to do: meet these people, go these places, and so that was a big one.
That was fun.
So
it was absolutely a lot of fun.
Recently, Cory reached out and said he was watching the 30 Days of Magic and was thinking it might be fun for us to do this video today and share some of our, how did you say, mundane items that have magical, how did you call it? What did you
Yeah, that's basically it. Just the stuff that is hidden in plain sight, right? The stuff that's kind of people see it and they're not going to think ooh, that's witchy. They're going to be like, oh, it's just a thing, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to freak out about it, but we know that it's got witchy significance and that we're using it magically. So I thought that was kind of a fun way to go with this.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think how we're going to do this is we're going to take turns and share a couple of our favorite witchy muggle items, right?
Yes.
If you wanted to share one of your first items and tell
Sure.
us.
This one's probably no massive surprise to anybody, but the one that I sort of default to is playing cards. And so playing cards are kind of the thing. And I mean, if you see like an old deck of playing cards wrapped up in yarn, you probably are going to be a little like, well, that's weird. Sure. Because this is like my very special inherited from my mother playing card deck. And so I use that for very particular readings and things like that. But I collect a lot of decks and a lot of different playing cards as well. So I keep tons of playing cards around the house, and they don't raise any suspicion. Nobody who comes over thinks like, oh, it's weird they have playing cards out. And so it's one of those things where there's always a deck at hand, so I can always do a quick reading. And I do my playing card readings more than I do tarot, even though I like tarot just fine, and I do some tarot as well. But the playing cards are great because you can sit there and you can do readings for one thing, which I think is great. And that's absolutely one of my favorite things to do with them. But I've also been working with using the playing cards to kind of inspire sigil work as well. And so I can, kind of come up with a certain pattern based on what's on the cards. And I can take the sort of the pips and things like that are on the cards and create a sigil based on that. But if I don't have a chance to actually draw the sigil, as long as I remember kind of what cards are associated with, I can just kind of pull those cards and tuck them in my pocket, right? Carry them with me, right? Get that influence, or leave them in a place where I'm trying to draw that influence. So maybe if I'm trying to, draw a little money my way, the wallet makes sense. If I'm doing protection, I'll just put them down sort of on the table next to the door, right? Or against the window frame or something like that. So that's been kind of one of my favorite. Nobody says anything about it. No one would have any clue, but there's witchcraft happening. So I love it.
So do you just have it like, if it's by the door or something, is it kind of tucked away? Is it under something, or is it just sort of laying there face up so you can see it?
It depends, because I wouldn't really, given my druthers, I would probably do this actual sigil and write that on a piece of paper and tuck that into the door frame somewhere. That would be kind of my long-term solution. But if I needed it very quickly, just having the cards out and kind of tucking them under the key tray by the door, right, where I drop my keys as I come in the door. Again, it's one of those things where people are going to see playing cards and they're going to see them out, but nobody thinks anything about playing cards. So they're just kind of tucked there temporarily as a ward until I can do something more.
I know you have published a great book. I should have brought it over here to show, but it's 54 Devils, all about your method of using playing cards. Did you have any lessons, or did you come up with it on your own? How were you motivated to write that?
So learning playing cards, I actually largely was self-taught on that. I picked up some things from people that I both read for and got readings from over time as well. But a lot of it came out of, it was a book that I kind of picked up in my early days of practicing magic and witchcraft and things like that. And it just, the system inside of it made a lot of sense, more sense than anything that tarot had made to me. And that may just be a testament to the fact that I wasn't studying tarot nearly well enough or nearly hard enough to get enough out of it, because I think there's a lot there. And you can go really deep on tarot.
Yeah, definitely.
But playing cards, it was one of those things where it just felt very accessible, instantly accessible. And so I just started reading with them more and more and more. And I would give readings to other people, and they would give readings to me if they knew how to use playing cards. And so, and then I started doing all this research on the folklore, and I found there was this sort of poem song going back to the Napoleonic Wars about the soldier who got caught with a deck of playing cards and wasn't supposed to have playing cards because they're a vice and a sin. And he's like, no, this is my prayer book. This is my Bible, because, the threes are the Trinity, right? The sevens represent the holiness of heaven and the sort of the seventh heaven. And all of these little details, they're sort of pulling out of the cards. And it's like, man, these things are great. No one knows.
Really,
there's so much in them.
That's thinking on your feet. Well, and I always had a vision when I first heard you talking about using playing cards. I was thinking of how amazing that is. If you are at a little party, if you ever can actually, be near people again, and if you're at a little get together and people are talking about fortunes or blah, 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 or even just you see some cards out and you pull that wise, would you like to know your fortune? And they're like, what do you mean? It's like, let me see your deck of cards. You know, I don't know. It's always there, no matter where you are. I mean, even though we don't talk about my job anymore, at my job, you know, there's things like that around because you can use it for all sorts of things. That's all same things and stuff at that place. But yeah, they're so inexpensive. Most people, I guess, would, as far as I know, have them in their house, maybe an old deck somewhere. And it's plus, you know, you can carry it on you and it's not going to be strange. You just be like, I like solitaire. What?
Yeah, I mean, people keep them in their cars and stuff like that, or their purses. And I've actually had exactly what you're talking about happen, where I've been at parties and somebody will sort of mention something, and the conversation turns that way. And I'm like, well, actually, I do read. I read cards, and they're like, oh, tarot, that's really cool. I'd love for you to read me. And I'll say, well, you know, I don't have a tarot deck. I actually read playing cards. So if anybody has a deck, I'm happy to read. And as soon as you say that, somebody's like, I got a deck. Do me first.
That is so cool. I should have done that too when I met you guys. That would have been great, because I've always actually wanted to see one in action. Like when you do that, I do know that you guys had that New Year's episode a couple years ago where you guys were trying different methods of divination for the year, and that was your not fortunate year as far as what your cards were saying.
Yes, I wonder if that was predicting
I'll
2020.
quote your story. Oh, was it? Was that for 2020 or 2019?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I know. I think it was for 2019, but you know, I'm wondering if there was a delayed result or a delayed action, because we didn't get back around to it for a while too. So.
Oh, I was gonna say that's just a slow burn. It's like finally it's revealed. Told you. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So what is your first object?
I'm gonna take the money route.
Okay.
So my father gave me $100 bill a few years ago, and probably for a trip. He always wants to try to pay me back for anything I ever buy, and he's just that kind of dad. And I stuck it in my wallet, and then as the year 2, 3 started going by, I never wanted to spend it, and I had two reasons. One is I'm weirdly sentimental. I mean, I think a lot of us are sentimental, but like I keep such weird things, you know, things that people have written or given me, or my kids and their teeth and you know, that kind of thing. Dog, I have little puppy teeth, but anyway, I didn't want to get rid of it because my dad gave it to me. And then I also started, maybe I learned it from you. I know I learned along the way, if you want to live a life where you don't worry about lacking something, you know, you never want to have your wallet completely empty. Even if you are done with that wallet and you're not using it anymore, even if you're donating it, donate it with like $1 in it, you know, and never have an empty wallet. And then you won't ever hopefully have an empty bank. And what's so funny is I've had that $100 bill in my wallet for several years. And then when I was digging through here to get it out and talk about it today, I couldn't find it in its normal spot. And I was like, I know I didn't spend it. And so I kept looking. And then in another area of this wallet that I don't even use, there were two $100 bills. And I'm like, what? I mean, I'd love to say that was pure magic, but I'm thinking, oh, you know, my dad probably gave me more. Like, I know we went to the beach in the last year or so. And again, but anyway, my point was I could picture where I always kept it. I'd never remember moving it. And suddenly now there's two. So we could pretend that's, who knows, maybe it's doing what the goal is. If you don't go along with lack, then you won't feel that.
Right.
You probably could word that in a better way.
No, I mean, I think you're exactly right. I think that this is that sense of, you know, it's abundance, and it's, you know, and I don't like to make too much out of the sort of like law of attraction type of thing, because that can get a little weird. But I do think that there's a sense of like, that's the sort of, the folkloric thing about it is exactly what you're saying. You keep it in the wallet so that the wallet essentially wants to bring more money to it, right? It knows abundance, and so it's going to seek abundance. And so it's that kind of, it's like making the wallet your little imp, right? It's your little familiar, by keeping it fed. Yeah. And I like that it went out and found you something else, you know, even if, like you said, it was just something that your dad, you know, gave to you, you know, randomly. You didn't have to do that, right? Like, it didn't have to happen that way. And the fact that you wound up tucking it away with this other $100 bill, to me, indicates that at least on some sort of unconscious, slightly woo level, it was
I love
working,
the
right?
woo. I know. I'm all about the woo. I'm like, bring
Hmm.
me more woo. It's fun and it makes life exciting and like
Indeed.
magical. So even in the sharing of that, I was surprised by what I found.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's such a wonderful working. And I've seen similar workings with that where people will put like a certain, they'll have like whatever their holy book is, and they'll keep $1 in that holy book until they get a 5, and then they'll add the 5 and they can
Oh yeah.
spend the 1, but they keep sort of building up. So I
I
like that
like
yours is
that.
doing kind of the same thing, but it's it's in your wallet where you actually keep your money. So
Exactly. Thank you. I know that was kind of a quick one, but I would love to have you take your next turn. What's another one?
sure. And this one, so this one is another kind of very, very mundane object. It's a pen. It's just a little pen. And I know this is going to seem like I'm going to be all metaphorical, be like, the pen is mightier than the sword. The pen is your greatest wand, Hermione, or something like that. But no, this one actually, so this is one, it's a really great pen. It's a pen I've had for years and years that I love to write with. But what's really kind of fun about this pen is it's really easy to take apart the pen. And so you can pull out the inserts for the pen. And what I do, I don't know if you can see it there, got a little scroll wrapped around it there. That it's just a scroll with a little, for me, it's a psalm, because I do a lot of psalmic magic. But you could use any kind of written spell, a sigil, if you like doing sigil work. You could do, if there's a specific particular passage from a poem that makes, gives you some sort of magical inspiration or whatever it is, whatever your sort of intention is, wrapping that around there. And occasionally we'll take it out and I'll just dot it with a little bit of, just a tiny little bit of an oil or whatever feeds it, whatever I want to do to feed it. This one's actually due for feeding. But then you just kind of have that in there and tuck it away. No one ever knows that that's in there, because you can't, I mean, if you looked really, really closely, you could probably see that there's a little scroll in there, but no one's going to look that closely at your pen. And so this pen winds up being the pen I use to do a lot of my sigil design work, or if I'm writing out blessings that I'm going to put in, I have a little blessing bowl that I do on my ancestor altar every week. So as much as possible, I use this pen for magical purposes. And every once in a while I wind up grabbing it and, grocery list, but I try to sort of keep it set aside for largely magical workings, because it's been sort of charged with, or it's using this little extra bit of magic that's hidden inside of it. And I think a lot of pens actually have that capability where you can get in there, you can kind of unscrew them and you can put stuff in them, and you can kind of load them with little bits of magic. So that's my number 2 object. So
That's
yeah.
wonderful. Do you want to keep the oil secret, or is it like a crown of success type thing? Or
Yes, so that one is Crown of Success. And I've done that with another pen before, that I have subsequently lost, so bad on me.
oh no.
That was I think I used Saints and Spirits oil, which was an oil that I was making, and it was really designed to be written for petitions to spirits and deities and things like that. And that one has gone missing, so I don't know, I could read something into that, or I could be like, I'm just going to use this other pen, so I'm just using the other pen.
Yeah, I will tell you, I stole, borrowed, was inspired by your pen in the scroll, and I also have tried that. Unfortunately for me, I usually, the kinds of pens I have aren't as easily like opened.
Yeah.
But I will say I've recently, in an effort to be greener, I've been trying to replace things with things I can reuse and replace the ink in it, or even a pencil that you can put new stuff in. I was even wondering, what if it'd be interesting if you could take pencil lead. I don't know if it would actually. It probably wouldn't work if you tried to do something to it, but that I could see trying to enchant it so that when you write something, it's I don't know, a little more magical.
Yeah. Well, and you can also, so there's a lot of, like, you're doing greener pens. One of the kind of cool things that I've seen in the green pen side of things is there are cardboard case pens that have the cardboard tubing instead of the plastic tubing. And those are really good because those take the oil really, really well. And you can take another pen and make little sigils on them, or little markings on them. And again, like, yeah, it just looks like somebody's doodled on your pen, but you know that there's something going on with it, which I think is cool.
Yeah. You use a lot of sigils, don't you? Or you're not a lot, but is that something that's you frequently go to when you're doing your daily magic?
Not sponsored, but Laura Tempest Zekroff, she wrote a book on sigil witchery a couple of years ago, and I read that. And up to that point, I had really kind of looked at sigils as this sort of like chaos magic, the sort of Peter Carroll, Austin Osman Spare, that whole group of people who did that really specific kind of sigil work. And so I was like, oh, it's fine, whatever. But then I read Laura's work, and it was just like, because she really opened up this whole world of like, you can do a lot with sigils, they don't have to be this one specific, like eliminate every repeated letter. Okay, now do this and this and this. That's a great way to do it, but you can do a lot more. And so once I was like, oh, wait a second, I can adapt my card system, which I use all the time, to be a sigil system that I can then sort of create new sigils out of the cards, and then sort of have the cards with me or on my altar to charge the sigil, and then go mark the sigil out in other places or put the sigil on magical objects. That just changed a lot for me. So I've been using that a lot more. It's also nice because it's not an appropriative form of magic because it's so self-created, right? And so you're not worrying about stealing from somebody else's system or stealing from somebody else's culture. It's a very sort of positive and empowering way to do magic. That's still very practical, still very, I love writing and reading, so it works for me because it's sort of writing and reading too. So so there's a lot of like stuff about that just makes me very happy to have that sort of in my wheelhouse or in my back pocket to use as a form of magic. Not that I still do little charm bags, and I still do other types of magic as well. Candle magic is still a big deal, but this is just it's been a nice addition. So do you do any sigil work?
I haven't done very much of it. That's why I was curious about it. I do call one of my tattoos a sigil. I have two tattoos. One was just like a pentagram. I got that one after I'd been studying and on this path for probably 2 years, and I was like, I think this is going to stick. I think I'm going to stay here. This isn't a phase. So I got my first tattoo about 2 years into it. But then when I finally was able to stick with recovery, because I worked with trying to beat alcoholism for a long time. Mm-hmm. And when I finally, I told myself, well, when you get a year under your belt, then you can, and I did. And so on the year anniversary, I went and it's hard to see from there, but it's just like two triangles that are stacked. And even though it's two triangles, it's actually called a triple triangle because it's like it makes a third one. I'm an air sign, so the air sign's sort of incorporated into it. And then the recovery sign is a triangle. I think it's got other stuff around it, but I didn't want it to be obviously recovery, but I put it on my thumb so that if I ever am tempted to drink or pay for something, I'm going to see it because I'm right-handed and it's right there in my face. And so it's just a reminder. And it's been 4 years now, so it's getting better and easier. But that when I was getting the tattoo in the moment of it, I was sort of meditating through it. And tattoos hurt a little. They're not terrible, but they hurt a little. And I was really taking in that pain and sort of looking at it like a cleansing. I got woo with it. It is a sigil on me to remind me of why I'm doing this, and just a curb any temptation. So far so good.
I love that. I love that you again, it's that kind of, it's hidden in plain sight aspect of it, but that it's almost something you can kind of touch, and it it gives you a little boost of that power that you need in that moment. Because I'm not saying like I understand everything that you've gone through or anything like that. But I've had a friend who is in recovery. He's lifelong recovery, and so I went to a lot of the meetings with him and was trying to be as much there for him as I could. And I know how difficult that can be for some folks. And I know it's like you said, it's not a like, yep, as one and done. We're totally recovered now. It's an ongoing thing.
That.
It's difficult. It's hard.
Yeah. My
So
first go through, like the first time I tried, which was a couple years before this last one, I made it 6 months and I was like, see, I made it 6 months. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm waiter, and
mhm.
went on another year or two before I was
Yeah,
like, yeah, I guess maybe I should take it a little more seriously. But yeah,
yeah.
that's what that second channel is about that I've been trying to mention lately and that I've been trying to revive because I used to post something every week, every Monday that first year and that it actually was so cathartic for me to do. Every Monday morning as I'm driving to work, I would give an update on how it's going, books I'd read, a tip I've learned, that kind of thing. And went through my mother's like death, and I was like 2 months in at that point, so it was rocky. But I also use that as a reminder if I ever get tempted. I'm like, seriously, you're gonna let this send you back? You made it through your mom's death, and that was like the worst thing ever. So yeah, but thank you.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to deal with, and you have done so well. And I'm like,
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite things about your channel is that you're so honest about that, because I think a lot of
right.
people, the desire is to sort of, you know, pretend like the bad thing never happened.
Yeah,
And of course that's
yeah.
not really part of the recovery process.
Right. You actually, it's kind of, that will work against you.
Yeah,
Exactly. I think that's why the first step is admitting it,
yeah.
is you're admitting it to yourself, but then it's really good to say it to everyone who knows you, just to keep you on the ball. Although again, it's always really up to that's something I learned too. I don't think you can I know we're not having a recovery conversation here. Never
That's,
mind. We'll let that go. I'll save that
no,
for my other
I'm
channel, but
again, this is one of the reasons I really like what you do. So,
thank you,
um,
thank you, thank you. Okay, so we're going to end this video here, but don't worry, the fun isn't over. If you hop on over to Cory's channel, I will also link it below. But yeah, hop on over there and you can hear more mundane magical items.
thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the other channel.